Welcome to week 12 of Bible Studies for Life. We're coming near the end of the quarter. We've got 2 weeks left here in 2 Kings. We'll be looking again at the story of Elisha following up. We're in chapter 5. We were in chapter 4 last week. We're in chapter 5 this week. And we're going to see this great story of a miracle done through Elisha. And some different stuff that we'll see out of this. I think you'll enjoy this. Before we look at it, if you haven't already, be sure and subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, the thumbs up button. Love it if you do that. If you've got a question, a comment, put that in there in the comments. If you want to tell us where you're watching from, we love that. And then also appreciate if you'll share the video with somebody else. That's great as well, okay? All right, if you want to support our ministry, you can go to give.exposedtochrist.com and support the ministry. We've got not only in teaching, but also in missions. If you haven't seen some of the mission videos, you need to check that out. All right, 2 Kings chapter 5, the story of Naaman. Okay, Naaman, we need to be clear about who he is. He is the commander of the army for the king of Aram. Okay, this is important in coming weeks. He was a man important to his master and highly regarded because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. The man was a valiant warrior, but he had a skin disease. Aram had gone on raids and brought back from the land of Israel a young girl who served Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his skin disease." Okay, so we've got this guy, Naaman, right? And the Lord, he serves the king of Aram, and the Lord has given him victory to Aram, right, through Naaman. So God has been working through Naaman, who is a valiant warrior, right, to bring victory to the nation of Aram, to the king of Aram. That doesn't mean that the king of Aram or Naaman, either one, recognized that's what had happened. This is the writer of 2 Kings saying this is what was occurring. Here's how God was moving and working already when they didn't know it. Don't forget this, right? God is at work even when you don't know it, even when we're away from him. Look, Aram had gone on raids and brought back from Israel a young girl who served Naaman's wife. Okay, so they've been raiding the neighboring countries, one of whom is Israel. And one of those times they went, they brought back these people, one of whom was a young girl, and she became a servant to Naaman's wife. Not an accident, right? God was in control and orchestrating this. And as we look at this story, when we look back to this, we say, well, clearly God was doing that, right? God was moving, and they didn't know it, and they didn't acknowledge it, which didn't mean that God wasn't at work, right? And she says to Naaman's wife, you know, if they were with this prophet in Samaria, well, he could cure him of his skin disease. Really? About that. Once again, you got to read the whole chapter, right? We skip to verse 10. Then Elisha sent him a messenger who said, "Go wash 7 times in the Jordan, and your skin will be restored, and you will be clean." Okay, clearly stuff has happened. Read the verses in between, all right? But he's come to Elisha, and he basically said, "Hey, I need help." And Elisha said, "Well, here's what you do, all right? You go wash 7 times in the Jordan. Your skin will be restored, and you will be clean." That's what you do. But Naaman got angry, and he left, saying, I was telling myself, he would surely come out and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and cure the skin disease. Aren't Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be clean? So he turned and left in a rage. And he gets there, he's mad. So what do you mean? Here's what I thought was going to happen, right? He says, I thought that he was going to come out here and he was going to stand up and he was going to call on Yahweh and he was going to wave his hand over the place and then he'd just cure the disease. That's not what he did. What he did is he said, why don't you go wash 7 times in the Jordan? We got rivers at home. If I want to go wash in a river, I go wash in a river. They're better than the River Jordan. Why would I go wash in the River Jordan? I can go to Damascus, my home, in the middle of what we now call Syria. I can go there. There's better rivers anyway. This is ridiculous. didn't happen the way Naaman thought it ought to happen. It didn't meet his expectation, and he didn't have a lot of regard for Elisha, obviously. I mean, he was desperate, okay? It wasn't that he came to Elisha because Elisha was a prophet and a man of God. He came to Elisha because he was desperate. But he didn't want to do it the way Elisha said. He thought, it's just not what I expected. That's not how I envisioned it. That's not the answer I was looking for. That ever happen? Where you think God ought to do something in a certain way and then he doesn't, and I mean, he gets mad, right? He says he left in a rage. Okay. Oh, look, we skipped another verse. Now we're in 14. We skipped 12 or 13. Read 13, because in 13 his servants say, well, look, if he would have told you to do something crazy, you would have thought, well, that's what I have to do, and you would have done it. But because he just said, just go down to the river and wash 7 times, you won't do it? Just, won't you do it? What's it going to hurt? Give it a try. So Naaman went down and dipped himself. See, it doesn't make sense unless you read verse 13, right? So Naaman went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, according to the command of the man of God. And then his skin was restored and became like the skin of a small boy, and he was clean. Oh, man. Who wouldn't give to have back the skin of a young boy, a young girl? Who wouldn't give to have back the skin of your childhood? Then Naaman and his whole company went back to the man of God, and they stood before him, and he declared, I know there's no God in the whole world except in Israel. Therefore, please accept a gift from your servant. Naaman said, all right, I'll go do it. Right? So he goes down and dips himself in the Jordan 7 times, just like the command of the man of God, and his skin was restored, and he was clean. Just what Elisha said would happen. So Naaman takes his whole company, and they go back to see Elisha, and they stood before him, and he said, I know there's no God in the whole world except in Israel. You see this, how God has been at work? Healing his skin disease was not the point. The point was to get Naaman to become a God worshiper. And Naaman, I think we have to give him the respect that he deserves in this, right? This happened, and he acknowledged that God had done this, and he said, there is no God in the whole world except in Israel. He is the only God. Yahweh is the only God. That's who I'm going to serve. All right. But Elisha said, as the Lord lives in whose presence I stand, I will not accept it. I'm not taking your gift. Naaman urged him to accept it, but he refused. And Naaman responded, well, if not, just let your servant be given as much soil as a pair of mules can carry, for your servant will no longer offer a burnt offering or a sacrifice to any other God but the Lord. I am no longer going to worship anyone, anything, except in no other God, only Yahweh. He is the only one, right? Yahweh, that capital Lord, that's Yahweh. He is the only one I'm going to worship. Boy, what a change has happened in Naaman's life, right? We go back here, and he's the commander, right? The king of Aram. He's raiding Israel. He's a valiant warrior, but he's not a God follower. And we get here, and he's just, I'm following God. He is the only God, the only one. This is this transformative experience that happens when God moves. And here's a couple of things I want you to see. One, we go back, right? God was at work and they didn't know it. Now, as you see the end of the story, it's easy to see that God had been at work, right? Even causing him to bring a servant. And that servant girl, think about her family and how horrible it was that their daughter was taken from them and taken back to Aram and now is serving this pagan God. But look how her daughter was used by the hand of God to bring glory to God and to convert Naaman. What a great blessing, right? But man, what a horrible thing to have to go through. Listen, just because we are going through difficult times, just because we are under attack. Just because people are against us doesn't mean that God is not at work, doesn't mean that God is not going to use that. I believe that the Lord will redeem every single thing that happens for His glory. No matter how we look at it, we've got to take the viewpoint that God is sovereign, He is in control, He is working and moving to accomplish His purposes, and we can't know it, and we cannot say, well, God's going to do the best thing for me and that I'm going to have a great life. That is not the case. But what God is going to do is the best thing to bring Himself honor and glory in the world. And that may mean we have to suffer. We have to go through hardship. It may mean we have to wait. It may mean we have to endure. But God is at work even when we can't see it. God is going to bring Himself glory even if we have to go through difficulty. And this is trusting the Lord with life. With all of life. Just trust Him with all of life. Thanks for watching. Hope that's helped. God bless you. Especially those of you who are teachers. Bless you for doing that. We just got one more week left in the quarter. I know it's going to be Memorial Day weekend. And watch the video next week anyway, okay? Teach the class you've got. Be faithful to the Lord. God bless you. We'll see you next time.